It's 1:12 a.m. You're halfway through closing the small poker room you manage above a failing restaurant. The night has been slow. 3 tables, mostly tired businessmen, and 1 regular who always pushes too hard on bad hands. You're counting chips, logging numbers into a spreadsheet that barely balances the books. The owner should have shut this place down months ago. Instead, you keep the doors open, keep the cards moving, keep the arguments from turning into fights. It's not glamorous work. Mostly it's math, people management, and knowing when to quietly escort someone out before a bad loss turns into a worse decision. You're good at it. That's why the man downstairs is asking for you. The waiter says it casually. Someone wants to see the manager. You almost say no. At this hour, it usually means a drunk player complaining about odds or credit. But when you step into the restaurant dining area, you see 3 things that change the night instantly. The tables are empty. 2 men you've never seen before are standing near the door. And the 3rd man is sitting calmly in a booth flipping a casino chip between his fingers. Not one of yours. You know chips. Weight, edges, materials. This one is wrong for your room. Too heavy. Too clean. The kind used in places where a single chip is worth more than a month of your revenue. You slide into the seat across from him because the other 2 men are standing in a way that suggests declining the invitation isn't an option. He pushes the chip toward you. Your game upstairs, he says. Good control. No cheating. No emotional players ruining the table. You don't respond. He continues. Tonight, the man says calmly, 3 of his creditors decided to collect. You feel your stomach tighten. You stand up instinctively. Relax, he says. They already tried. You glance toward the kitchen door. The 2 men by the entrance haven't moved. They're gone, he continues. Your owner isn't. That sentence lands heavier than the chip. You sit again. The man studies you like he's evaluating a piece of equipment. He says, I need someone who understands games, not gambling. Games. You don't answer because you don't know what he means. He leans forward slightly. You control personalities. You control risk. You keep the table stable even when millions are in motion. Millions. Your poker room's biggest pot tonight was $4,000. I run a private operation, he continues. Very private. You wait. Global clientele, politicians, royals, hedge fund managers, people who can't walk into casinos without creating headlines. He pauses, watching your reaction. They gamble anyway. You understand the implication instantly. They need a place, he says, and they need someone who can run it. You shake your head before thinking, that's not me. He slides the chip back across the table. Your owner owes several people. Tonight was one of the gentler attempts at resolution. You feel your throat tighten. What are you saying? He taps the chip once. I'm saying that if you walk upstairs and keep counting chips, your life stays exactly the same. You wait. He continues. But if you come work for me, the debts disappear. The building remains open. Your former employer lives. The choice arrives in silence. You've dealt cards long enough to recognize a forced hand. What exactly would I be doing, you ask. The man smiles slightly. You'll run the table. You expect more explanation. There isn't any. What table? The only one that matters. You hesitate. How much money are we talking about? He shrugs. Enough that losing is never about money. That answer scares you more than a number would have. You think about the restaurant owner upstairs, a tired man who tried to keep a legal business alive in a neighborhood where legal barely matters. You think about the 3 men who came tonight, and the 2 who are standing quietly behind you now. You pick up the chip. It feels heavier than it should. Where, you ask. The man stands. You start tomorrow. That's how you become the operator of a casino no one admits exists. At first, you think you've made the worst decision of your life. The building looks like nothing. A quiet financial office tower in a city where skyscrapers hide everything from hedge funds to intelligence contractors. You expect guards, scanners, a dramatic entrance. Instead, a receptionist hands you a key card and tells you to take the elevator to level 12. The doors open to a room that looks like a minimalist conference floor. 6 tables, perfect lighting, no windows, no clocks. You immediately notice the cameras. Not obvious ones, small lenses integrated into ceiling seams, light fixtures, and table rails. You count at least 20. Good, the man says behind you. You turn. It's the same man from the restaurant. You noticed. What is this place, you ask. He answers simply, insurance. You wait for him to elaborate. He doesn't. Instead, he walks to the largest table. Tonight, we host 6 players, he says. You scan the room. You run the games? I run the stability. You run everything else. You spent the next 4 hours learning the rules of a world that operates on power instead of odds. There are no cash buy-ins, credit only. Every player has a line verified through a network of banks, shell companies, and private accounts that stretch across half the world. You manage limits, not to protect the players, to protect the system. Because the moment a loss becomes politically dangerous, the entire operation becomes a liability. That's your real job, not running cards, managing consequences. The first night teaches you exactly how fragile the system is. The players arrive separately. A tech billionaire whose company builds half the satellites in orbit, a finance minister from a country that publicly bans gambling, and the shipping magnate who owns enough cargo routes to quietly move armies, and 3 others whose identities are never spoken aloud. They sit, they play, and within 20 minutes one of them loses $6 million on a single hand. You watch the table carefully. No one reacts, but the billionaire studies the finance minister a little too long. You lean slightly forward. Gentlemen, you say calmly, new deck. It's a small interruption, but it resets the moment. That's your real skill. Control the temperature before it boils. Over the next year, the games grow. Your reputation spreads quietly through networks that never advertise. Invitation only, verified through layers of intermediaries. The players arrive by private jet, diplomatic transport, and occasionally military aircraft that land at airports where their names never appear on passenger lists. The stakes rise. 10 million pots, 20 million credit lines. You learn how different powerful people gamble. Politicians gamble to feel control over something. Billionaires gamble because winning businesses stopped giving them adrenaline. Royalty gamble because no one in their life tells them no. And criminals gamble because they're addicted to risk. But the most dangerous players are the quiet ones, the ones who don't react. They're the ones who will destroy the table if they lose badly enough. That's where your real job begins. You start tracking patterns, not cards, people. You know when someone is drinking too much. You know when someone is losing beyond their ego threshold. You know when a player is trying to manipulate another. Sometimes you adjust the game structure subtly, shorter rounds, higher blinds, or you introduce a different game entirely. Every change is about balance, because if 2 men at your table decide they hate each other, the problem doesn't end at the casino. It ends with companies collapsing, governments collapsing, sometimes people collapsing. By year 3, you're not just running the casino, you're running the ecosystem around it. Security teams, transportation routes, encrypted communication channels. Your player list grows to 32 names. Only 8 play regularly. The rest rotate through, each one powerful enough to cause international consequences if they disappear.